This week, a tiny glimmer of hope. Europe starts to slowly reopen for travellers. But how will they keep us all apart?
Also coming up, Lucy tests the gadgets that claim to keep you safe on your travels. And we're on one of the world's most famous beaches as it reopens fully for the first time since lockdown. We're back on the road this week, a modest 2-hour drive east of Travel Show HQ in London, in the resort town of Margate. For more than 250 years, holidaymakers have come here, rain or shine, to experience the chipped around the edges glitz of the great British seaside.
In recent times, there's been a renaissance here. New hotels and restaurants and restored vintage attractions have brought cool young London types here by the bucketful.
But as resorts throughout Europe start to reopen, blinking into the summer sunshine, what kind of future will they face?
Across the world, we're seeing the first signs of tourism adapting to the new scheme of things. There's lots of talk of borders being lifted and special air bridges or corridors being formed between countries with low infection rates. Whilst in many cities, galleries, museums and landmark attractions are up and running again.
In Italy, the first country in Europe to enter lockdown, the Colosseum, the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the ruins of Pompeii have all reopened. And in France, people can once again wander the grand halls of the Palace of Versailles. Hotels in Europe are also gradually reopening too. Back in April, we spoke to Javier in Spain, who had just been forced to shut down his family-run chain of hotels in Benidorm. Now he's hoping to reopen them again later this month.
We are going to sell the less capacity than ever because we have to keep the social distance. This will help people to have a more exclusive experience. If we are talking about profits, we will have less profits than last year, sure. Sure.
Here in England, in line with government guidance, many hotels are hoping to reopen in early July.
That includes the Cave here in Kent. They'd only been open for a few months when the virus struck, following a £12 million development.
It was a huge shock. No one would ever want to launch a brand new hotel or any business and then 3 months, 4 months later, close it down. And we literally closed it down overnight.
Jonathan has already put in place some coronavirus safety measures, offering us a glimpse into what our future hotel stays might look like.
First thing, if you could stand in front of the camera, please, and look into the camera so we can take your temperature.
Authenticated.
As you're authenticated, first of all, sanitize your hands and then help yourself to mask and gloves if you'd like. And then from here, if you go to the reception desks, you've got the screens up so our staff are completely protected, as is the guest as well.
And you also say to people if they've got luggage, take their own luggage.
Yeah, we will be not offering that service for the time being, just again to minimise the contact with the guest.
Once you're checked in, you have limited access to the hotel's communal areas. You have the option of booking a 20-minute slot at the swimming pool and the restaurant delivers to your room.
We've taken the tables out of our fire pit restaurant, including the chairs, and we've actually set them up in all rooms, every room type.
Actual, like you were in a restaurant kind of dining. And so what happens? Somebody comes in and delivers it?
So your doorbell will ring, and outside is a tray for you to bring in yourself. If you'd like drinks, you can order via a WhatsApp. It will be delivered pretty instantly, but without any contact whatsoever.
Are you confident you'll get people here?
I believe we'll see an upsurge in UK travel.
So domestic tourism?
Domestic tourism, 100%. You know, we've seen bookings that for July, our booking occupancy is around 30 to 40% at the moment on the basis that we're able to open.
As an independent boutique resort, Cave Hotel has been able to be relatively nimble, incorporating coronavirus safety measures. But what about the larger chain hotels, with hundreds of rooms and a high turnover of guests? Cleaning specialists, the Safe Group, have been advising big hotels about how they can keep both their customers and their staff protected.
I've taken a look at a large number of the big hotel chains,
And there's a lot of different a variety of things that they're doing, you know, ranging from what they call room seals. So effectively, when someone's cleaned the room, they completely seal it with a notice, effectively. Some hotels have decided to remove items that you might touch, such as tissue boxes, removing the magazines. Some of them are doing a lot, and some of them, interestingly, are doing nothing. So it's a mixed bag.
After months cooped up at home, many of us will be desperate to get away for a few nights when hotels reopen. But with corporate and international travel still pretty much at a standstill, the future for many hotels, whether they have thorough safety measures or not, remains uncertain.
What kind of hotels then do you think will survive, and what kind will fail in this new climate?
Whether you're the budget end or you're the top end, the hotels who are proactive in, you know, understanding the challenges that are going to come and prepare for them, I hope will flourish through it.
So, once all those Perspex screens are installed, travel should be back on the cards, shouldn't it? Well, let's find out from the man who has all the answers, our global guru, Simon Calder. Okay, Simon, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now, because back in March, when we first talked, after COVID-19 hit really, you said
we will see in June something like normal travel beginning again, but it will be on a small scale, and even if there is huge amounts of pent-up demand from you and I desperate to travel, it won't be anything like the normal summer that we would be looking forward to at this time.
How would you like to revise that, or would you like to revise that?
Oh, I think I would, just a little, because I underestimated how non-normal it would be. Certainly there are going to be parts of the Mediterranean, North America, Asia, where it will at least have a reasonable number of tourists showing up, but it is going to feel very different. We've already seen that the big travel companies have got to come up with new ways of reducing risk when we are flying, and new ways of working, particularly in really big hotels, which are used to effectively processing us by the thousands. So there will be a new normal. One thing, though, I absolutely wasn't expecting was the UK's sudden introduction of quarantine for all arrivals from the 8th of June onwards, which of course has had the I guess predictable effect of stifling all inbound tourism to the United Kingdom for some unspecified period, together with making it very difficult for any travel firms to sell outbound travel, because with the best will in the world, it's great to have a weekend in Barcelona or Rome, but if you're then going to have to spend 2 weeks stuck in your flat or your home, that's going to take the edge off it rather.
When can I go on holiday?
Well, it all depends where you are. At the moment, of course, every country, and indeed many regions within countries, have their own rules. So, for example, if you happen to be in New York and you think, I'd love to go to Florida, well, you're going to have to self-isolate for 2 weeks when you get there. But in general, the European Union, 27 member countries, are saying, okay, we're going to reduce the frontiers between us on the 15th of June, and that's going to be a kind of soft opening, followed on the 1st of July with a much more general opening. And certainly the traditional Mediterranean destinations, all the way from Turkey, Greece, Croatia, Italy, Cyprus and Malta, of course, France and Spain, not forgetting Portugal, they look as though from the 1st of July they will all be back in action. And indeed some countries, in particular Portugal and Croatia, are already saying, come here, Rajan, we're ready for you. But of course, the Foreign Office in the UK is still warning against all but essential travel.
What about regions outside Europe? I mean, for instance, I don't know, the Middle East or Asia. What's happening there?
We've seen different degrees of lockdown, and there's been some really strange things going on. For example, the 4th of June was when the Caribbean island of Antigua decided that it was opening up, but many other islands are still very much closed. And in general, I think we're going to see a pattern where smaller islands with very few cases of COVID-19 are going to be generally quite slow in opening. Argentina, which is very much a southern summer destination, has said no international flights until the 1st of September. And it's of course, this terrible tension between countries wanting to do what's best for their population in terms of avoiding infection as much as possible, and the economic reality that so many places are absolutely dependent on tourism.
Simon, a pleasure to speak to you again. Thanks very much.
Gadgets and tech can make travellers' lives a whole lot easier, but in a time of COVID-19, how can they keep us healthy? Well, I can tell you there are things on the market right now that let you do just that, like this, even if your travel is just a stroll around your local area.
This is the Hygiene Hook, a pretty simple gadget really, but something that solves that classic COVID-19 dilemma: how to open a door without touching it.
Shortly after it became a bit more obvious about the COVID-19, driving into work, I thought, actually, I could just make a hook to open doors. And as we've got machinery and I've got 3D software, an hour later we had 15 hooks.
For everyone they sell, they give another one away to healthcare workers.
It's a pretty nifty solution to a problem that a lot of us are facing right now, although you can probably tell from the design that it doesn't necessarily work with all kinds of door handles. Yes, doorknobs, I'm talking about you. But I think the burning question here is, would I actually use one of these? Well, I've been to quite a lot of questionable places on my travels over the years, and I could have really done with opening a few doors of this, but it is quite chunky, so it's not going to be to everyone's taste. But it wouldn't hurt to just chuck it in your bag or suitcase, just in case you need it.
Now in Italy, at sites like Florence's Duomo Cathedral, which normally welcomes about 4 million tourists a year, it's been trialling a new system to help encourage proper social distancing for the smaller number of visitors they'll be allowing in. As someone enters, they're given a device to wear round their necks, which alerts them when they're less than 2 meters from someone else. But even if you're not venturing to any tourist sites anytime soon, tech can help you keep your distance. A new online tool from Google for Android devices called Sodar uses augmented reality to let you know what is and isn't 2 meters away.
So it's superimposing a ring onto my phone screen. Well, I can see that my cameraman Simon is definitely 2 meters away. He is outside the ring. It keeps jumping around a little bit, so I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is. But it gives you a good idea. It gives you some rough guidelines as to how far you should be keeping your distance to other people and objects. I think it's quite fun. Of course, there were gadgets on the market before COVID-19 that were designed to help stop any nasties from getting into your system. And you may have noticed that ultraviolet light is used in quite a lot of them. Take this water bottle.
The Lark bottle movement uses UV light in the cap, which it says will neutralise up to 99.9% of harmful bacteria in 60 seconds. The UV Clean smartphone sanitizer and sanitizer bag also use UV light to zap away 99.9% of bacteria and viruses, although they say it's not yet been tested for its effectiveness against this coronavirus.
Generally, these gadgets are portable, they're practical and easy to carry around with you when you're out and about. And at times like these, they can prove hugely reassuring as well. But without seeing any visible signs of cleanliness, it's quite difficult to ascertain if it actually works and whether they're doing what they say on the packet.
Well, what we do know is that UV is being used in this pandemic. It's been trialled for disinfecting the New York public transport system, for example, but with strict safety measures in place because certain forms of UV are dangerous. But in Scotland, St Andrews University and Nine Wells Hospital have been researching the possibility of disinfecting big public spaces with people in it, like airports.
So the idea that we've got, and other groups around the world, is to use far UVC radiation, which is going to be safe for humans, but we've really got to use a clinical trial to ensure that it's safe. and we've got a clinical trial starting in the next few weeks. And if this is successful, the goal is that we can roll this out into large public spaces such as trains, airports, food production lines. And the ultimate goal is that this will go towards bringing all of our lives back to normal.
Now, if you're a regular viewer of the show, you may remember that 3 years ago I was one of the first members of the public to ride Red Force, Europe's fastest and tallest ever roller coaster, at Port Aventura in Spain. It will come as no surprise that the theme park has been closed since lockdown, and it does hope to reopen sometime in July. Although elsewhere, other theme parks are already starting to open their doors, with new social distancing regulations in place. Disney parks in China are up and running again, and flying in the face of tradition and some might say fun. In Japan, people are being asked not to scream while they ride roller coasters in an effort to stop the potential spread of coronavirus. Disney parks in America say they hope to reopen in July, and Universal Orlando has already opened.
One park marking its 100th anniversary this year is Margate's much-loved Dreamland.
Following years of decline, Dreamland got a £25 million revamp in 2017, and now you'll find its spruced up vintage rides, including the oldest scenic railway in the UK, alongside new event spaces for major artists and festivals throughout the summer.
Dreamland had enormous plans to mark its centenary, our 100th year this year, and it's devastating that we haven't been able to follow through with those. We had huge music festivals planned, all sorts of different types of entertainment. We're going to push some of it into 2021. We're 100 until July 2021, so hopefully we can do some of that next year instead.
This is obviously an amusement park, a theme park with so many amazing rides, but how can you practice social distancing with these rides?
We think that opening rides this summer season is going to be almost impossible. It's just not viable to put people on vintage rides like the ones behind me. We just can't see a way to get people on and off those rides safely with the guidelines as they are. We're watching very closely what parks are doing in different countries. We can take best practice and we can adopt that here in the UK.
Of course, America is the real home of the big-scale theme park. But will social distancing, for the time being at least, take some of the fun and the thrills out of riding the rollers there?
I mean, I'm one of those people that as soon as the theme parks reopen, especially the ones near me, I'll be there on day one. The different measures that they're using, I think, are so fascinating. The one place that I haven't visited since the reopening is Universal Orlando, and they're probably the strictest that I've seen, at least here in America, with all of the precautions that they're taking. They have, some fantastic rides, and they're social distancing on the actual attraction. And I saw a line that was 80 minutes for a ride that is usually 20, maybe 15, and a ride that normally gets several hours of line is now completely booked throughout the day because they've done electronic, reserve your spots.
Now, many beaches in Europe are now gradually beginning to allow people back, but in Australia, they've been one step ahead. Since early May, they've been trying to get things back to normal, but it's only been in the last week that the authorities have managed to reopen the world-famous Bondi Beach.
Bondi is extraordinary. I think you can get 40,000 people on a beach. It's a 1 kilometre stretch, and to have so many people in that stretch of sand is quite extraordinary. We no doubt saw those images that went all around the world on the 20th of March 2020, where we should have been practicing social distancing, but it's like it was taking people quite a bit of time to actually understand the implications of not doing that. So it led to us actually closing the beach the very next day. The closing of the beach is though was really emblematic of just how serious this whole thing was, and that people could die from it. And that was a message that took a little while for people to get through.
The actual real challenge with the process, it's not to close the beach. I mean, that was hard. The real challenge is to keep it closed and maintain that. We got thousands of people down here every single day, regardless of the weather, and they use the water every single day. You know, we had big fences up, we employed a security company to manage those fences, and we had to kind of police the situation, and that was really difficult for us because it's the opposite of the thing we're here to do, you know. We want people to enjoy the water and enjoy the area, so we had like a real moral issue with that. It was sort of against what we're here for. Oh yeah, good.
I came up with this notion of safe access corridors to the water. People were trying to access the ocean via dangerous rocks because the ocean actually was not off limits, it was just the sand. So these corridors allowed people to access the water safely, and they were extremely busy. I think we were having a total of about 1,500 people an hour using those corridors going and coming.
It was a Monday morning and we all came down and opened the gates and just let them out, mate. It was a classic coming down here because it was just like a line of blokes with their surfboards, guys and chicks, just ready to get out there, and it was just good to see humans do what humans like to do, you know? It was a happy moment for the lifeguards.
When the beach shut down, it was when things were pretty serious, and you know, weren't sure which way everything was going to go. And then slowly as it opened, but you had to, there were only little walkways to get into the sea, so it still felt a bit weird. And now that, I don't know, it's all opening up and the rules are relaxing, it's kind of representing what's going on around Australia, and that we can go out and travel around the state and yeah, just enjoy life. And I think people appreciate it. Once it's taken away from you, you realise how lucky you are just to have this on your doorstep.
The people of Bondi Beach, a long, long way from the Kent coast.
Coming up next week, Addy looks back at some of his adventures in Dubai and gets an update on how the lockdown is easing there.
In the meantime, keep safe, keep planning your next adventure, and we'll see you soon.